Hello, and welcome to One Shot Wednesdays here at Weave the Tale. I am Mitchell, also known as Penny for Tail on all the social medias. We have a really special guest today. Um, Someone who, in my mind, after reading the PDFs of the book for the Between, is definitely some new and upcoming amazing mechanics that honestly, after reading it, I want to now implement into just like every game that I run. But without further gilding the lily, as they say, we have Jason Cordova. Why don't you go ahead and just kind of give us a little brief teaser about who you are and what we have tonight?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Jason. I am the founder of the Gauntlet gaming community and publishing group, and I am the author of The Between and a couple of other role playing games. So,
Awesome. So after this, of course, for people watching, we're having a wonderful interview with Jason. We will be hopping into a one shot of the Between, this amazing TTRPG game set in Victoria, London. Which kind of has some very unique things going on with it. One of my favorite aspects of the game is the unseen mechanic, which kind of while you're in your most climatic scene, you're kind of going back and forth from that scene to a scene totally unrelated to it, but have echoes of semblance to it, almost like a metaphor kind of expounding before you. Jason, what was the question that kind of brought up the answer of the unseen scene?
yeah, that's a great question. So when I was designing this game, my one of my main design goals was that the experience of playing it feel very cinematic. So I want it to feel like almost like a prestige TV drama, like while you're playing it, right? And one of the things that I incorporated into the game in order to make that happen is this idea of the unseen. And so the game, The Between, is about these monster hunters in Victorian-era London, and they're sort of running around the city and like sort of trying to take out these monsters and serial killers and dangerous urban legends that are sort of plaguing the city. And while they're doing that, every now and then, especially at night, um, we sort of cut away from them to see what else is going on in the city of London at that same time, right? And and so when I was creating the game, I wanted it to feel kind of cinematic, but I also wanted it to feel like London was a character in the game as well. And so the unseen, which is this sort of this like side parallel scene with the main hunter scenes, kind of helps do that, right? It sort of establishes some like a vibe and a feeling about the city of London, and like you said, sort of creates some thematic connections between like the main story and sort of the city of London. So yeah, that was sort of like where I was going with that when I created that mechanic. It's quite unique in role playing games. I don't think there's anything like it out there, to be honest, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, as you should be. We're gonna try to include it into tonight's game, depending on the time, because they have a lot of cool unseen kind of scripts for you to follow, so that you as a GM don't need to prep or anything like that. You can just hop right into it and have these kind of like unique scenes. What was kind of your favorite use of the unseen scene?
It's interesting because I think the thing about it is some groups, like, it takes a minute to kind of get accustomed to that mechanic because it is so kind of different from like what you normally find in a role playing game or a tabletop role playing game. And so I think the times when it's the best is when it kind of clicks with players and they sort of realize the power of what's going on there. And so because they get rewarded if they can sort of visually or thematically connect something that's happening with their characters to something that's happening in the unseen and vice versa, right? And so it's a it just generally, I guess, my favorite moment is when that clicks with the play group, and it starts to become this almost like a point of pride within the play group that they can sort of create these cool visuals, right? The between more than anything else, I have designed the game so that the game is constantly supporting you in like just saying really cool shit, right? Like you are always being given the tools to like just say evocative things, to describe evocative things. Like when you first arrive at a location, you sometimes you have to answer like a question as a group about something about the location. The threat structure, which is what the keeper, which is what we call the GM, what the keeper uses. The threat structure is just loaded with all kinds of stuff that the keeper can just grab and use in the moment. It just makes everybody at the table like seem like a role playing game rock star, and the unseen is probably it's one of those things where once the play group sort of like gets it, it just shines so much, and like everybody's just so excited by it. Yeah, so it's that kind of like click moment for me.
Yeah, was there any like I mean with all the talk of like cinematics and stuff like that, I'm trying to think, was there like a TV series or movie that you kind of were watching and were like, "Oh yeah, this is
Absolutely.
it."
Yeah, so if you've ever seen the TV show Penny Dreadful on Showtime, that
Hmm.
is probably the number one inspiration for the game. If you've watched Penny Dreadful, you can read the game and like see exactly where a lot of stuff is coming from. But and so that's the big one. But it takes inspirations from lots of different things. British horror classics like graphic novels like The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and From Hell. But the real big influence is Penny Dreadful, right? And shows like it. I mean, look, there are shows that are coming out on Netflix now and other streaming services that are like in this same sort of genre. Those weren't my inspiration when I was writing the game, but the Between kind of really feels like those shows. So
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think that is, I guess, so interesting about the setting of kind of Victoria London that keeps like TTRPGers as well as like audiences coming back to that very particular time?
well, what I think is interesting about it is we have this idea of Victorian-era London, or just the Victorian era. We have this idea of it being this sort of like cloistered, closed off, like moralistic, kind of time period. But I'm not sure that's true, right? Because a lot of the sort of media and literature of that day was very ghoulish and gory. The sort of the penny dreadfuls that the TV show gets its name from, these were basically like comic books that were just like extremely bloody and very sexual and just very for the time, like very, I would say, really quite risque. And so the Victorians, I think there was it's this like pretense, but then there's like this dark underbelly underneath it, and I think that's what makes it so enticing, right? And then of course we just have like the sort of historical things that were happening at that time that have survived, that we know about, like Jack the Ripper and things like that, right? So I think that's a big part of it, and also I think there's something about the fact that at this time London was like the center of the world, right? I mean, it was the crossroads of the world. It was a cosmopolitan city with all sorts of different, cultures and people and stuff happening. Like it was the place to be. So I think that's a lot of it.
Oh, definitely. So, other than that, we also have an outline for how play goes around, which I think is another unique perspective in the TTRPG genre. I mean, we're talking about you have your dusk, you have your day, you or dawn, day, dusk, and then nighttime. Each kind of
Yep.
having like certain things that are supposed to happen on that. What was kind of the design perspective on creating this outline instead of just being like, all right, players, here's the mysteries and here's the
Mhm.
unseen during the night? Like, what was kind of your thinking on that?
That's a great question. I think in a lot of role playing games we don't have structure like that. There certainly are games that do, right? Mouse Guard uses kind of a similar structure, right? But in general, it's not a thing. We sort of just sit down and start playing. I like the structure for this game not in all games necessarily, but it works in this game because this game asks a lot of the playgroup in terms of sort of asking the playgroup to sort of like get into a certain headspace at a certain time. During the day, the scenes should be casual and have a sort of casual, almost not safe, but like a very like almost like just uh, like a languid feel almost, right? And during the night, it should be like intense and visceral. And so, in order to sort of help emphasize those things, I created a structure that sort of helps players and play groups sort of get into that mindset. And the game also, because the game sort of requires players to give a lot of input in terms of world building. This is not like a GM. This is not all GM facing world building, right? The players do a lot of world building in this game. It's a collaborative process, and I think structure helps a collaborative game, right? I just think it just makes it easier to do a collaborative game, and so I chose the structure I did, dusk or dawn, day, dusk, and night, because the idea of London at day versus London at night is thematically important to the game. So
Yeah, and I really like kind of the difference between those two, and having like those safe time periods during the day and
mhm.
places to kind of,
Safer.
especially during the night. Yeah, safer. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thing to know. But for people watching, we're having a poll right now, which I think is very important, especially for the players coming up next. And James has been kind enough to kind of send over some of the threats, which I totally missed when I was first researching the game. So the two threats we are looking at today are St. James Street Ghost, and then Sally No Face. So if you're watching right now, feel free to vote, and that will, whatever comes up, that'll be the threat our players will have to deal with tonight. So your fate is in your hands.
Should I give a pitch so that I can give a pitch on
Yes.
that way?
Oh,
People
that would be
can
great.
vote.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah,
Please
yeah.
do.
So the game uses what's a structure for the GM or the keeper, which is called threats, and they're like scenarios basically. And the way I like to imagine it is, if you think about Gotham City, like Gotham City, the Penguin and Catwoman and Joker, they're like all over the place. Like Batman might be dealing with Catwoman, but the Penguin is out there somewhere, right? This is kind of what this is. These threats are sort of, they're bubbling up all over the place, and the characters have to sort of deal with them at different times. So the two threats that it sounds like you're going to choose from are the St. James's Street Ghost and Sally No Face. The St. James's Street Ghost is kind of a bottle mystery. It takes place in this townhouse where this family is being plagued by a ghost, and the characters have to figure out, the characters know it's a ghost going in, they know that much, but they have to figure out what can cause this ghost to pass on to the next world. Like what can we do to get it to move on? And so the mystery they're investigating is sort of what happened to the ghosts, like why are they a ghost, why did they die, how did they die, and how can we create a ritual to get them to leave? So that's the idea behind the St. James's Street Ghost. Sally No Face it's about an urban legend, a and the mystery kicks off with a victim being found in their tenement building. Their face has been carefully surgically removed, and so the people are starting to think that it's this urban legend called Sally No Face, and Hargrave House, that's what we call our characters collectively. Hargrave House has to figure out. Um, they can approach it different ways. They can try to lure Sally No Face to them, or the killer to them. They can try to find out where the killer is and go hunt them down there, or they can take a slightly trickier but maybe safer approach, which is sort of, why is the killer doing this, and how can we bring them in peacefully by maybe empathizing with them a little bit, right? So they have like different approaches that you can take with that one. So yeah, but they're both great fun, and one's more supernatural, one's more grisly. So yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So people watching, please vote, and that'll be what we're tackling tonight. But one other thing I really enjoyed, because any Powered by the Apocalypse game is 2d6 and you have your set of moves and such. But for this case, instead of kind of like all these different moves for different things, the moves are kind of divided up by the timetable, like day move, night move, the information move, the vulnerable move. Can you just kind of like go through those different move types and why you like, especially between the day and the night move?
Sure. Yeah.
Seems very interesting.
Yeah, so unlike a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, the Between does not have that many moves. As a sort of designer, I take a less is more approach, and so I think that a lot of PBTA games have too many moves, in my opinion. So I wanted to go with a smaller set, but they can be used with different stats, so there's some variety there. Um, so there's essentially like kind of a few core moves in the game: the day move and the night move, which are basically the same thing, except one happens at day and one happens at night. And then you have the information move, which is gathering clues. And then you have the vulnerable move, which probably won't come up in your one shot, but it might, which is essentially how we kind of learn more about the characters and see them be intimate with each other. And then there's the move that's called answer a question, which is how you sort of solve the mystery at hand, right? And so the day move and the night move, they're the same move, but they're written so that the night move is more dangerous. So when you engage with the night move, there's a greater chance of something really terrible happening to your character, right? And the Between doesn't have hit points or anything like that. Like, it can just be that your character just dies, right? Like, they just get murdered, right? As a result of a poor roll. But that's a bit misleading, because the game has this other mechanic called the Janus mask, and you can tap into the Janus mask to sort of get a do-over, right? Like, you get to bump up your roll so that you didn't actually die. We just kind of saw you die, but it didn't really happen. It was a different timeline, right? And so, but that's kind of the deal. So the day move and the night move are used basically whenever you do something risky, or there's something kind of really scary going on. And the characters are trying to keep their nerve, right? Or try to like not lose their nerve. And you just roll it, and there's a little bit of a kind of a negotiation between the player and the keeper, because the player has to say what they're afraid of, like what will happen if they fail, right? And in the case of the night move, the keeper says how it's worse than that, right? So that's what makes it more dangerous, because the keeper says, yeah, that's true, and it's even worse because of this, right? And so, but yeah, basically it's a sort of catch-all move for like lots of different risky activities in the story. And then the information move is used anytime the characters are trying to gather information, whether that's through research or talking to NPCs, or um, studying a tome or something like that, right? So, studying a
Yeah,
body.
definitely. Yeah. I love it, and especially like the information move and the answer question, the way that the kind of mystery unfolds, particularly the answer a question, as you gather up clues and stuff like that. I mean, it definitely is way more player facing than a lot of other
Absolutely, yeah.
mystery TTRPGs. We've dealt here on the channel, and I've dealt with. So for that, for GMs or keepers, for this instance, wanting to run this, what kind of advice would you give for kind of that shift?
Yeah, so the thing about the mystery, if you're accustomed to mystery role-playing games, is this is very different. This is kind of a unique thing in the hobby. I would say it didn't start with this game, because my other game, Brindlewood Bay, did it first. But the way the mystery system works is there is no canonical solution to these questions, right? We don't know what will make the St. James's Street ghost go away. We don't know what can draw Sally No Face to us. We don't know the answers to those questions. Like, there's no canonical answer. The keeper doesn't know. We just have clues that the characters find, and the clues are a little freeform. Like, you can kind of if you're giving a clue to the players, you can kind of twist it and shape it to make it fit the moment, right? It doesn't have to be exactly as it's written on the sheet, but you can sort of adapt it to make it make sense, right? Or you could even do a clue that's just kind of vaguely inspired by a clue that's on there. That's fine too. But basically, you'll be collecting these clues, and then when it's time, and I hope you all get to it during your one shot. You may not, but I hope you do. When it's time to do answer a question, the players just, this is not part of the day night phase, it's just a thing the players do. The players just have a discussion like, okay, here are our clues, and based off these clues, here's what we think happened, or here's what we think the answer is. Right? And this is how we make the ghost go away, or this is what happened to Sally No Face that caused them to be a killer, right? Like you just have this conversation, and you can kind of, you can sort of like add in extra context that maybe we didn't see in play. You can sort of like sprinkle some extra context in to make your theory fit, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, if it works right, it should feel like the players are like legitimately solving the mystery, because they kind of are, because it's something that no one at the table, including the keeper, knows the answer to. So it's very collaborative, and it feels really great when the group is kind of really into it, you know.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of some of my favorite mystery and just TTRPG moments where the GM kind of lets the players decide like how exactly it's going to be solved. You know, the GM might have an answer, but they're like, you know what, that sounds way better than the answer that I had. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
I like that it's kind of codified.
You asked about like advice for GMs or for keepers running the game, and really truly, the best advice is just be prepared to be excited and surprised. Like think about the clues, think about how the clues might be used and how you can kind of dole them out when the time is right. But at the end of the day, you're really just sort of you're all kind of in this together, and figuring out the mystery together. And yeah, it's super fun. You have to kind of you have to sort of let go of the steering wheel a little bit, and that's okay. Your job as the keeper is more to just manage that structure, that day-night structure, so that everything is kind of going when it's supposed to, and the players will take care of the mystery. So.
Heck yeah, I'm really excited to see them try out, and it looks like we have a winner, which is Sally No Face.
I knew it was going to be Sally. I knew it. I think my pitch for Sally was better. So.
I mean, it has a very enticing name, just No Face, especially when we think about the Face Off movie with Nicolas Cage, is what I was thinking of when I first saw it. Which is pretty cool. So you have this game, but you also have your previous game, which has a lot of mechanics that kind of went along with this too. How did you start in like the whole game designing world? What was kind of your first like? This is my answer, and this is my question moving forward, and this is how I want to like progress.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I did publishing first. I was publishing other people's games way before I wrote my own. And so that was probably where it started. But really, I mean, I think a lot of it is, so I have podcasts of my own that I co-host as part of the Gauntlet network. And we would talk about these things. We would talk about like, mystery RPGs are okay sometimes, but I wish they did X, Y, or Z better, And so we kind of we're always having conversations like that. And so I got into writing Brindlewood Bay, my first game, and that was fairly recently. I think I started writing that like in 2019, like late 2019. And the sort of like idea behind it was, so I was actually writing the between first. And I was running into a bit of a brick wall with the mystery system. And so I decided to write a smaller, more focused game, which is what Brindlewood Bay is, to sort of try out the mystery mechanics to make sure they work. And then I went back to the between. So Brindlewood Bay, it was kind of like a sketch for the between, basically, right? Like I sort of tried some stuff out there first. But it's a great game in its own right. I mean, it's basically combines Murder, She Wrote with like sort of Lovecraftian style fiction, right? So it's weird horror and cozy murder mystery combined.
Yeah.
And so you play like elderly women in this like little seaside town, Brindlewood Bay, who are solving real life murder mysteries, and but as they do this, they start to learn about this dark occult conspiracy that connects the murders, and so they have to deal with that at some point. And that game was exclusively about solving the mystery, was just murders, and so I could try out my mystery system just in this like kind of smaller scope to make sure it worked, and then I sort of like expanded it and blew it up in the between to be all kinds of things, right? And so but how I got started, I was publishing first. We at the Gauntlet, we've been publishing a little indie RPG magazine for probably 5 years now called Codex, and so I was publishing lots of indie creators, lots of we really focused on like our focus in Codex was on authors and writers who are not yet published anywhere. We focused on authors and writers with marginalized identities, particularly like queer identities. And so that was just sort of what we were doing. We did that for a long time, and we still do. And but at a certain point, I just decided, I want to write my own game. So I'm having fun publishing other people's games, and that's great. I'm happy to
Yeah.
be a platform for people, but I have ideas too. And so yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, definitely. And this is the, I think, second mystery game where there was kind of a codified clue and mystery system. The other one being Baker Street, which is the
Yes,
Sherlock
yeah.
Holmes
Yep.
TTRPG, which I really enjoy
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
But
it's
for
good.
people watching, yeah, it's really good. What were the can you explain kind of the clue system and how you kind of view GMs and players kind of unfolding the clues as throughout the night?
Yeah, so I think part of with a lot of like mystery role playing games, in my experience, one of the problems you kind of run into is there's like two big problems. The first big problem you frequently run into is there's just a lot of prep for the GM. So the GM has to like very carefully like read the mystery that they're doing, or they have to write one, and everything has to fit together just so, and that's a lot of work. The other sort of issue you run into in a mystery role-playing game is it sometimes just doesn't feel like you're solving a mystery. Like it just feels like a little too um, well, that's not quite the right way of putting it. Sometimes in a mystery role-playing game you run into this issue of, we didn't go into the basement in order to find clue A. And because we didn't do that, we don't really know what to do now. Right? So like the GM has to kind of like step in and say, okay, you have to go to the basement to find that thing down there. And it just kind of comes off as a little hand-holdy or artificial, or in the worst case scenario, the game just kind of stops because the players didn't approach it in the way that the GM expected them to, or that the module expected them to. And so I was really wanting to like defeat those two big problems that I saw in mystery role-playing games. And so I played this other game quite a lot called Cthulhu Dark, which is a sort of very rules-light Cthulhu mythos mystery game. And Cthulhu Dark has this more free-form approach. It's not quite like my game, but it's kind of similar, where basically no matter where you look, you can find a clue, or you can advance the story. So it's not like you have to go look in specific places. It's just you can kind of look wherever, and stuff is happening. I I sort of like focused that a little bit in my design and said, okay, here's the list of clues. These clues can be put wherever the players are looking. So wherever they're looking, you can find a clue that'll fit. And so it eliminates that problem of, okay, we're not looking in the right place. But then also, because the structure has like everything that the GM needs right there, and it's so fast because you can like just literally read it in like 10 minutes and be ready to go. Um, that that eliminates the sort of like heavy prep problem too, right? Because it's not like the
I
players have to
have
like,
a
yeah.
I don't know if you've used something like NVIDIA Broadcast before, but it's just like an AI powered noise canceling program. If you're willing to try it, it could completely eliminate the AC sound.
I don't know what that was, but
Yeah, that was God. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I
Go
don't think
ahead.
it's not that much setup. I'll send a link. You can decide.
I think we have a
I'll
hot mic
message him.
situation.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, I just wanted it to be more flexible, basically, right? Like, it's a flexible mystery because there's no canonical solution. The GM doesn't really have to prepare that much because the players are going to figure it out. So yeah.
Yeah, I really, especially like, you know, as a GM, whenever they look at a clue, you're in those like kind of preppy prep the prep heavy TTRPGs.
Prep
You're
heavy,
like,
yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
this clue is going to bring in this aspect of the mystery, and it's kind of interesting for the keeper to be like, I have no idea what this clue is going to be concerning these players and what they eventually answer the question using this clue. You know, what's that going to look like? So having that mystery for the keeper, I think, makes the whole game more engaging for every player. The keeper
Oh yeah,
being one of the players.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And again, like, as the keeper, your job is to make sure the train runs on time, right? Just make sure the phases are going, and make sure that everybody gets enough screen time and everybody gets a chance to do something, and then that's your job. And then, like, it's the player's job to sort of like eventually say, okay, here's the mystery, let's figure out what's going on here, you know. So it's nice. I don't want to say the game runs itself, because you may not feel that way in 10 minutes, but
Well, I'm going to
it kinda
expect
does.
it to run
It
like
kinda
that.
does.
I'm just going to sit back.
People tell me frequently that it feels like it runs itself, which is nice. So
Excellent. Yeah, when we start, I'm just gonna be like, guys, this runs itself. If it doesn't, like,
have fun.
Jason's gonna come up on here. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, for everyone watching, feel free to ask questions. Especially like, I feel like we have someone who's definitely gifted and has a lot of experience with mysteries, and especially mystery horror games. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them over in the chat before. But this right here is. We were talking earlier, and you said like you still have maybe like a year or a year and a half before this kind of goes live, and we see like a physical book, if I understood that correctly. Between now and then, what are you expecting the game to continue to grow, or are you kind of play testing certain things? Can you expound on that?
Absolutely. So the way we sort of roll out our games in the Gauntlet publishing, we did this with our game trophy, and then with Brindlewood Bay as well, is we put out the sort of basic core rules and a few little things to go with it, which is what we have right now. And then we release stuff just regularly for it after that, mostly through our Patreon, but also we eventually make it available in other places too. And so we'll have new threats, we'll have new playbooks. We have stuff planned for like probably the next like 9 months or so. So we'll be supporting this game quite a lot. And we also like to sort of really engage the community a lot. And so we do writing contests for our games. And so we did a couple of writing contests with our game trophy, which was really, really popular. And so we're going to be doing the same thing for the Between. It actually starts tomorrow. And so, but basically it's going to be a contest for like writing new threats for the game, and it's mostly for fun. There is a cash prize for like the winner and the runners up, but it's mostly just a sort of way to sort of just to kind of stretch your creative muscles a little bit and to kind of engage with the system a little bit, and then once you're done, you can take your mysteries and go sell them on itch.io or wherever you want. So yeah.
Excellent. And so where will that be kind of announced at? Where, if people on the chat, people watching it, want to check it out?
The best way to learn about it, just like when it launches, is just follow the Gauntlet on Twitter. So it's at Gauntlet RPG, Gauntlet RPG, and they'll announce it when it's time, and then we'll have it on the website as well. So once they announce it, they'll have a link for all the information that you need to participate. So.
Excellent. And thank you, Time Lord's wife, for rating us right now. We are currently talking to James Cordova, who is the designer for The Between, a new and upcoming TTRPG set in Victorian London, filled with mystery, drives itself, DM, light prep work in this case. So we're really excited to have James here. And then afterwards, of course, we're going to take a quick break and then hop right into a mystery, Sally No Face, which was voted on and adored by the fandom. But of course, for our last kind of time here, feel free to post questions or anything you might have for James, because we have a really cool resource right here. And for those who are also curious about the Gauntlet, as well as the links you need to follow in order to keep up to date, you can see it right below if you're watching on YouTube. Just click it, especially that contest, like for writers and stuff like that. That sounds like a lot of fun. And these threats look really, really cool. Definitely check them out. So as someone who really enjoys art and stuff like that within TTRPGs, as you guys move forward, and obviously the character sheets in themselves have a very nice, like, Victorian look to it. Like the American was all bold, and I was like, yeah, that's the American. But yeah, what are you guys thinking in terms of kind of the art direction moving up, or have you guys like kind of thought about what it would look like?
I mean, it's pretty well settled. I mean, the game already has like, I think that we have like 13 illustrations in there already in the PDF, and then we'll have more as it progresses. But the artist is Amanda Lee Frank. Amanda has kind of reputation in the OSR, like sort of like indie dungeon crawl like scene, and she's done a lot of like Kickstarters for like her own projects, and so she has this really nice like style. And what she did for the artwork style is what I asked for anyway, and what she turned in was, I wanted it to feel both like a Penny Dreadful comic from the Victorian era, but also just a little more modern and approachable than that. So it kind of combines this sort of old aesthetic with a sort of more like with modern sort of like visual touches. And so you can kind of see that throughout the artwork. And then the graphic design is by Harold Eckmuller, and Harold basically had the same like guidelines for him, which was, I want it to be really accessible and easy to read and feel modern, but I want it to have aesthetic flourishes that are like of the era, and that's what he did, and we're really happy with it. Probably when we, next year, maybe when we do like a Kickstarter for like bigger, more expanded version of the game, that includes all the stuff we've been releasing for it until then, we'll probably have like more color pieces. Right now it's pretty much black and white besides the cover, but we'll probably do some more color pieces like for that. But we're pretty well going to stick with the style we have. We like this sort of like period like kind of style. So.
Yeah, it looks really cool, and like as you said, like the Penny Dreadful comic books, like I mean, just looking at the one on the on page 41 with the keeper basics and stuff like that, right before that, it just has like a very like I'm about to open up a page of a comic book in that kind of old school way, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's meant to feel like of another era, but also like with lots of little details. Like you can kind of pick out lots of little tiny details.
Yeah,
sure. So it's fun.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So we have one question, and it totally skipped my mind because I know we're not going to be dealing with it tonight. But Chaotic Blade, who has run this game before, which is really cool. That's awesome to hear, and would love to hear more people who've run it. Could you talk about the mastermind?
Sure, yeah. So the Between is meant to be run as a campaign. So it was designed to be run in like, I think a full campaign, in my experience, it usually takes about 10, 11 sessions, something like that. And the thing that connects up all the different monstrous threats is this thing called the mastermind. And so there is a criminal mastermind in the city who is sort of the puppet master, or in our case, with our first mastermind, a puppet mistress, sort of controlling or sort of they're basically, their goal is to destroy the empire, right? They want to destroy the, you know, the crown, right? And you have to eventually face them and stop them, right? And the way it works though is you have this sheet. It's called the mastermind sheet, and our first mastermind that the game comes with is called is a woman named Theodora Brathwaite. She is originally she was like a pirate queen in the Caribbean, but then she sort of became legit and sort of became this like powerful like merchant, and now she lives in England, and she's sort of always been at war with Queen Victoria, like they're sort of social rivals, and she wants to bring her down. And so you have this sheet with like all the details you need to know about Theodora Brathwaite, but lots of space to sort of fill in your own ideas about what you think is sort of really happening, right? And you sort of like refine those ideas every time you play, and you kind of like make adjustments to what Theodora's big plan is. And so as you play the game, you collect these things called mastermind clues. So there's regular clues, which are for the threats, and then you have mastermind clues. And mastermind clues are just a timekeeping device, because every time you get a certain amount of them, you open up a new part of the mastermind sheet. And so whenever you open up one of those new parts, it's Theodora starts to become more and more involved in the story. She becomes more of a menace. She becomes more something you have to deal with. And eventually, at the end of the campaign, you as the keeper will write your own threat that's about Theodora Brathwaite, and the hunters have to stop her from what she's trying to accomplish. And that's how it works, you know.
Oh, that is really awesome. Once again, we won't be able to do it tonight. We might have a teaser.
Yeah, it won't come out tonight. Yeah.
As much as I would love, because it does look amazing. And I love the idea of a mastermind behind all of these sort of creepy mysteries as you guys try to survive the streets of Victoria, London. So we are coming up at the end of our time. We're going to have a short 10-minute break before we hop into the Between to truly test out and enjoy this amazing game. Thank you so much, Jason. Did you have any final comments for people watching?
No, only that the game is available now on DrivethruRPG. I assume we'll have a link somewhere, but you can find those links on my own Twitter as well, which is Jason Cordova 6, JASON CORDOVA 6, and also that Gauntlet Twitter that I mentioned earlier. But yeah, go pick it up. I think you'll really love it. I mean, it's $15. It's a terrific value. You get so much stuff for your $15. So, and like I said, we're supporting the game like basically nonstop. So like there's just more stuff coming. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone, please check it out. And the link to the drive-through, thank you, Loud Atlas, for posting up on there. And we'll have this stuff circulating as the game goes on. Check them out, support. This is an amazing game, especially if you, the GM, want to become more of a player and enjoy this fantastic journey along with your players. Amazing stuff. So once again, thank you so much, Jason. And
thank you.
For everyone else, we will see thee later.